Hello, welcome to the GLP-1 Hub podcast. I'm Anna Reisdorf, registered dietitian, GLP-1 user. Today we have an incredible episode with Sarah Kennedy. She is the CEO and founder of CalloCurb. CalloCurb has been the sponsor of this podcast for a bit, and they are the sponsor of this episode as well. And some of the things that she's going to say kind of shocked me. I'll be honest, about what long-term GLP-1 use might be doing and the research that her company is undertaking to determine a pathway for people to eventually stop the medication. And I've shared this before on the podcast that I am a medication stopping failure, that I have tried to get off this medication twice and failed twice. And this really gave me some thought. This really gave me something to think about in terms of the possibility of getting off the medication and what long-term use might do. I want to remind you that CalloCurb is offering 10% off if you want to give it a try. You're going to want to use the code ANNA, ANA10 at calocurb.com. That's CalloCurb.com. And you can find all that information in the show notes as well. But seriously, let's get on to this episode because it is very, very fascinating what Sarah has to say. Welcome to the GLP-1 Hub podcast. I'm really excited to introduce Sarah Kennedy. Sarah is the CEO and founder of CalloCurb. You may have heard about it already on the podcast because they are actually a sponsor of our podcast as well. But I'm really excited to hear some of her backstory and why she started the company and all the things that it can possibly do for GLP-1 users. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, lovely, great to be on.
Hi, can you tell everybody a little bit about your history and how you got involved with this particular product?
Yeah, I will. Just really briefly, I originally graduated as a veterinarian and practiced for about 5 years as a veterinarian, usually actually in exotic animals. I did the zoo here in New Zealand, and then I moved into animal nutrition and actually originally specialised in aquaculture, so did salmon and shrimps and so on like that, which were fascinating and leads into a lot of the omega-3s and so on, that we all consume today. I then moved into human nutrition and took over the largest health and wellbeing company in New Zealand. And then we grew that rapidly over the next 10 years to become the third largest in Australasia. So this was health and wellbeing. We did all supplements and some foods. So really specialized in that. Specialized in human nutritional supplementation, functional medicine, probably for the last 20 years. With CalloCurb, it was actually 2017. Just about all primary research, what we would call primary or blue skies research in New Zealand, is done by the New Zealand government, so not sponsored individually. So a group of very talented scientists employed by the government in an institute called Plant and Food, had a hypothesis in 2010 that they would find a plant-based extract that suppressed appetite. The reason for this was that there were some historical reasons. In times of famine in the Scottish Highlands, Scottish people ate very, very bitter berries, these heath berries, to suppress appetite. And in fact, in the Kalahari Desert, tribesmen chewed very, very bitter cactus to suppress their appetite when they went hunting. So that there was already this historical understanding of bitterness and appetite suppression. And then there'd been some latter work done in animals with suppression. So they put in for a grant. They got a $20 million grant back from the government, and the grant was called Foods for Appetite Control. They did some extraordinary work that I won't go into, but they mapped of the bitter taste receptors we have right down through our gut, and this is published. So no one knew we had bitter taste receptors. So we have 25 bitter taste receptors on our tongue, but we have them right down through our gastrointestinal tract as well. And this was an evolutionary mechanism of humans to really stop us eating bitter products because bitter products were often associated with poison. So if you eat something bitter, you will spit it out. If it goes down to your stomach, you'll usually either feel nauseous, so you won't eat anymore, you'll vomit it up. If it goes into your intestinal tract, so your upper intestinal tract, you will release appetite suppressing hormones, that being GLP-1, CCK, and PYY. So these will release because they go to your brain and say, hey, stop eating. So this was an evolutionary mechanism of human, and quite interesting if you think about it. Plants themselves evolved alongside animals or humans. So if you think about it, apples make themselves very, very sweet because they want humans to eat them to spread the seeds, but they make their leaves very, very bitter, so we don't eat the leaves. Similarly with strawberries. So this is an evolutionary trait. So once it actually proven, now remember this wasn't known before, that we had these right down through our gut, and they then built this high throughput model, and they tested over, they literally built the endocrine system in a model. They then tested over 1,000 extracts to see to stimulate these cells. And quite interesting, only 2 did. Out of the 1,000 extracts, only 2 did. One was a potato oxalate, which is great, but it's poisonous, so, you'd be slim but dead. The other one was an extract of hops. And because they were plant and food research and they'd bred all of the hops in New Zealand, they then tested about another 50, 60 hops till they got to the Eureka one that really produced the most amount of these appetite-suppressing hormones. So, very simply, they took biopsies from 300 humans, proved we had bitter taste receptors right down through our thing, proved that these bitter taste receptors lower down produced appetite-suppressing hormones, then tested over 1,000 extracts to get the one, literally the one that did that. And, that's not surprising because if we did it with everything, we'd have a cup of coffee and we wouldn't eat. So,
Sure.
It's not surprising. They then went through and did a number of formulations to get so it's delivered to the upper intestinal tract, and B, that it would release. So they did all of that. So to go on 5 years, and then they took it into their first human clinical trial, which was done here in New Zealand, and it was done between the government research agency and one of our largest universities. And they showed that if CalloCurb, as it's called now, is given an hour before a main meal, or an ad libitum lunch, or an eat till you're full lunch and snack, it stimulated the release of CCK and GLP-1 at 600 times above base level and PYY at 400%. And why that is so important to point out is you have to be above 400% to make any behavioural change whatsoever. So we see a lot of things that say we stimulate GLP-1. Yes, they do. Anything stimulates GLP-1.
Sure.
If you eat a piece of bread, you stimulate GLP-1. But unless you stimulate it above 400%, you'll see no behavioural change. You might see a little drop in blood sugar or blood glucose, but you won't. So that's it. And then we measured intake, and we got an average of an 18% reduction in calorie intake. Now, that is huge. That is very, very statistically significant. So just to give you an example, a semaglutide, so an Ozempic, will give on average a 24% reduction per day. We give an 18%. Yeah. So, this is a comparison. And what we're doing is stimulating your natural GLP-1 versus injecting it in. So this is the difference. That was completed, I think, in 2017. Fabulous, wonderful scientists. But then they do all of this work and they go, well, what do we do? We've got this extract, and what do we do with it? So they approached me, because of my background, and said, hey, we've got this extract. what should we do? And I, from all of my years in functional medicine, I had never seen something like this, an ingredient that with that amount of science behind, that in this larger category. I mean, it was just completely, to me, I'd never seen anything like it. You know, we'd seen thermogenics, we'd seen laxative, we'd seen fillers, we'd seen all of this. Now, remember, that was in 2017. That was long before, was Wegovy and Zepbound. So, you know, like the man that liked the company so much he bought it, I said, you know, I want it. And so I raised the capital, I formed a team, and we launched the company in 2018. You know, look, it was great. We launched in New Zealand and we sold. But, you know, remember, no one really understood this etiology or this physiology of weight management. So really, you know, for us, it was 2021 when Wegovy was approved by the FDA. As I always say, Novo Nordisk spent $1 billion over 21-22 advertising. And really, they took 139,000 doctors to lunch and dinner to teach them about the physiology of weight management, because up until this time, most doctors or practitioners would say it's exercise and diet without understanding the physiology of weight. So, yeah, and then, so, you know, we could come back in, and this was over COVID. And I'm not sure if you remember, New Zealand was locked down for 2 years. Literally, you know, it was a bit like, what was the song? You know, you could leave but never come back. Well, you can't leave, you can come, but what was it? I've forgotten the name of the song. But yeah, and you could leave, but you could never come back. We were in New Zealand, so we came back to America in 2023 and literally relaunched, and we went to, I'll always remember it, we went to Obesity Medicine conference in New York. So these had endocrinologists, obesity specialists, and it was really to say, was my science enough to be accepted by these specialists? I could have literally, and I could have sat down on the floor and cried. They absolutely loved it. They loved it. So it was fantastic. Because we had done 2 more human clinical trials in that preceding time to show that we reduced both hunger and craving in men and women. So we'd done both a clinical in males and a clinical. That's a really long explanation, isn't it? But that's sort of the timeline.
Fascinating. It's so fascinating. I do have a couple questions for you. Is there an obesity problem in New Zealand in the same way as there is in the United States, or are we just
everyone thinks? No, well, you know, everyone thinks, you know, we are clean green, we're beautiful, but we're not quite as much as the US, but yes, we have around 36%, which is why the government sponsored this research, because, you know, and up until that time, like America, there was nothing really that was, you know, was adequate. So yes, that's why they sponsored it in that time. And until we commercialized it, the government sponsored it all. And the government still owns CalloCurb, or owns the technology. I license it from them on a worldwide, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So GLP-1, the reason why this medication works is because it helps the GLP-1 hormone stick around longer. So is that also accurate for the supplement? Does it stick around long enough to have an impact?
No, well, it's really interesting. The thing about GLP-1, or natural, let's keep going, it's natural GLP-1. We all produce GLP-1 because that's our feedback mechanism to tell us to stop eating. What CalloCurb does is we super stimulate your natural GLP-1. But what I try and tell people to think about, so amarisate, which is the active ingredient, it's a extract from hops. No one can pronounce it. Never let a scientist name a product. They love the name amarisate. Amara meaning bitter and sate meaning satiation, but no one can pronounce it, but the scientists love it. So this bolus goes down into the upper intestine. It releases, it's in a delayed release capsule. It releases there. And I try to tell people it's a bit like a pinball machine. It goes down and it hits these bitter cells, these TAS2R receptors, right down through the entire. So you're releasing CCK, which is very, very potent. That's cholecystokinin, then GLP-1, and then PYY. So we're producing 3 appetite-suppressing hormones, but we are hitting them all the way down, so we last for 4 to 6 hours. So normally GLP-1 will last for 2 minutes. Your natural GLP-1 will last for 2 minutes. But because we're like this pinball machine going down, we keep hitting these bitter taste receptors that keep releasing. We're like, we're hitting jackpot all the way down, and you're getting this. So we can show that we've elevated it right up over a 4 to 6 hour period. And we know we reduce hunger and craving over that period. So the second and third clinical trial we did in men and in women, we measured hunger and craving, and we did it in a 24-hour water-only fast. And we gave CalloCurb at 16 hours and 20 hours. And in women, it was extraordinary. We got 100% decrease in increased hunger and 120% decrease. These are all published papers, 120% decrease in craving. So what that means is at 24 hours, they were no more hungry than they were at 16 hours. And that last 8 hours of a 24-hour water-only fast is very difficult. At 24 hours, they were craving less than they were at 16 hours. We also gave a rebound eating at 24 hours, and they ate 14.5% less calories, and that was 4 hours after the last dose. So very, very effective. So don't stick around more, but you're producing more, and you're producing it over a longer period of time through your gastrointestinal tract. And once again, it's natural, and it works with your body's hormonal release. So if you look at the graph, you've got what you'd normally produce, and then you have what you produce with CalloCurb, and it's really double that.
And now it's time for our Hero Bread tip of the week. And today, Hero is launching a brand new pasta, their Elbow Mac. And the last pasta they launched sold out in 36 hours. So if you want this, you're going to want to get to it today because it launches today. So what can you do with the Elbow Mac once you get it? You can make high protein mac and cheese. The high protein pasta has 12 grams of protein per serving. So you're going to want to start by blending cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, and sharp cheddar to make a creamy protein rich sauce. Stir it in with cooked elbows, top with a sprinkle of breadcrumbs and Parmesan, then bake it for 15 minutes at 370 degrees, and you get a 30 plus grams of protein mac and cheese. Yes, please. So if you want to get 10% off your order at hero.co, you can use the code GLP1HUB. That's GLP, the number 1, HUB to get 10% off your Elbow Mac or any of their other awesome products. On my GLP-1 journey, I've learned that I really need to maximize every calorie, and Grüns helps me do just that. Grüns are a convenient, comprehensive formula packed into 8 gummies a day. This isn't a multivitamin, a greens gummy, or a prebiotic. It's all of those things and then some at the fraction of the price. Bonus, it tastes great. Their sugar-free option has just 1 gram of net carbs and 20 calories, but still delivers 6 grams of fiber and over 60 ingredients to nourish your body. And the best part, it's convenient. There's no shakes, mixing, just grab a daily pouch and go. So whether you're running errands or need a sweet treat at night, Grüns fits right into your routine. And if you want to try them for yourself, visit the site grüns.co, that's GRUNS.co, and use the code GLP1HUB, that's GLP, the number 1, HUB, and you can get up to 52% off your order with that code. So there's a lot of questions about possibly getting off GLP-1 medication. And, in the United States, we're having many issues with coverage and that people are losing their insurance coverage. Insurance companies
Absolutely.
are finding ways to not pay for it, and it's very expensive. CalloCurb is a potential for kind of weaning off, and you sent me a protocol for how to do that. Can you talk a little bit about how this might help people get off the medication at some point?
And I say it's not an if, it's a must. So what most people don't realize when you've been on an injectable, and this is clinically proven, and I can send you the clinical paper, is when you're on an injectable, right, you suppress your natural GLP-1 to almost zero, right? So when you come off, this is why you get this super rebound and this intense hunger, because you're not producing your own GLP-1. It's like whenever you take any synthetic hormone, you suppress your natural hormone, because your body goes, you know what? I don't need to do anything. I'm going on holiday. I'm going on holiday for a while. And, you've got to get it. We know when you come back from holiday, you're like, yeah, I don't really want to work. I just want to lie on the beach. It's a bit like your hormones. They're like, yeah, I don't know. So you've really got to kickstart that gut-brain axis again. And that's where CalloCurb comes in. Because remember, we super stimulate the release of these gastric hormones. So remember, on the injections, absolutely amazing synthetic hormones, but they've suppressed your natural hormones down to zero. So when you come off, your hunger's going to come back at this massive level, and this is why people feel this huge hunger, and it's part of the reason why we get this weight regain. It's not an if, it's a must to go on to CalloCurb. So then the question we get is, well, I'm on CalloCurb, so can I ever come off CalloCurb? Absolutely. Our scientist, or the government scientist, believe that we upregulate these receptors. When we say up, we're kind of exercising them. Think of them like a little muscle. We're kind of training them and exercising them. So they have this hypothesis. Now, I will be able to tell you this for sure in 2 months' time. So we have just finished our 4th human clinical, and the 4th human clinical is on 150 patients, men and women, BMI between 25 and 35, over 6 months, with a 3-month follow-up. It's a huge, and we're looking at weight loss, body conformation, GLP-1 production, blood analysis, so on like that. So it's cost us $2 million. But one of the things we're measuring is this upregulation of the little of your GLP-1. So, when you come off CalloCurb, your gut-brain axis is working better than it did before, which is why a lot of people use us as an alternative. They can't take the side effects, they can't afford it, they don't want to inject themselves. So, they take CalloCurb because not only it's an oral and it works, and it does all that, it also is really helping reset their gut-brain axis. Last night I was coming up in the lift to my apartment, and I bumped into one of the other apartment owners, and he's a lobbyist at our government, and he big tall guy. And he said to me, "Oh, how are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he goes, "What do you think of me?" And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, you're looking great, Phil." He'd lost all his tummy. And he said, "I've been on CalloCurb. I've lost 11 kgs. And I said, that's wonderful, Phil. And he goes, "It really works, doesn't it?" So I'm like, of course it works. We just spent $30 million on it. So we got thousands of people like that.
So when let's say you're on a GLP-1, because personally I have tried to get off the GLP-1 twice and failed twice.
Oh, really?
Yes. So the second time I didn't let it go as high as the first time because I saw the writing on the wall. So if you wanted to get off, what would you do? Would you taper your dose and go up on the CalloCurb? Like, have you developed a protocol for how that works?
I would taper it down, but I would start CalloCurb at least 2 to 3 weeks before you come off. So start tapering down. I don't know what you were on, but you want to get down, let's say it's a tirzepatide, you want to get down to 0.25, and the lowest, like your starter dose, but start CalloCurb. And in fact, a lot of physicians or practitioners are using CalloCurb at the same time. So they're using CalloCurb because they can, lower the dose They're not even using it to titrate off. They're just using it simultaneously because they can lower the dose of the injectable down to really like the starter dose. And so they're both getting this exogenous, so external, synthetic, but they're continuing to stimulate the endogenous. So they reduce the cost, they reduce the side effects, and they're continuing to stimulate the endogenous. And what they're also finding is they're not getting any breakthrough hunger from day 5 onwards. So, you get that breakthrough hunger and people say, oh, increase my dose. Well, they don't need to. So they use it in the way through and then when they taper off. So what was your experience coming off it?
I was an early adopter of GLP-1, and so I didn't have any information. I thought it was going to be like phentermine, which I had used years ago, where you got on it, you lose the weight, you get off. So that's what I did. Then I'll be honest, I had a summer of enjoyment and good times, and the weight came back on really quick. And so then I was like, okay, well, I know what I did wrong.
Yeah.
I never felt extremely hungry again.
Like so a lot of people say to me, it's just massive hunger.
Yes. So it was more that the portions just got bigger and I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's CalloCurb, helps you to feel full faster. And that's what we say. Literally, we're telling your brain you're full, before you are, because that feedback mechanism, your natural feedback mechanism, takes about 45 minutes. And most people have eaten a large meal by the end of 45 minutes. And so so I remember the first time I ever took CalloCurb, it would have been in 2017, and I would have had one of the tests. And I remember being out at dinner with a group of girls, a woman, and we were talking, and I was kind of doling out these pills. I was a bit like a drug dealer at the table doling out these pills. And anyway, we shared this lovely, because remember we're in New Zealand, so we shared this lovely little leg of lamb, and, it was all crispy and beautiful. And we ate some, and, I was full, and how you'd normally, well, it shouldn't, but, a group of girls, we're all chatting and that, and you'd sit around and maybe you'd pick at those little crunchy bits. I remember just sitting thinking, I can't do that. I'm actually full. And it was amazing for me because I have always battled my whole life. I've had this love-hate relationship with food. I love it, but I hate it. I eat too much, I binge, and then I hate myself. It's this constant yo-yo my whole life. And I can say now, for what it's been for the last 8 years with food, has completely changed. I'm at peace with it. I can eat, but I don't eat as much. I no longer have that love-hate relationship. So it's been revolutionary for me.
Wow. And so do you still take it occasionally or all the time?
Absolutely. Because I intermittent fast because I'm lazy. I'm just lazy. I just find it's the easiest ways. I take mine at about 8 or 9 in the morning, and I don't eat till 12 or 1. And I know when I'm going to eat, I won't eat as much. And I will, like in the evenings, if I'm going to eat late, so if I'm going out and I'm not going to eat till, like 7 or 8 o'clock, I might take it at 4 or 5 o'clock because I don't want to get to a cocktail party and go, oh, I'm going to eat everything. So it just helps in that. It just helps for that. But yeah, it's, how they used to say gin was mummy's little helper. I say CalloCurb's my little helper. And it's always in my bag. And, the interesting thing is as well, I travel so much. I spend 50-60% of my time in the US, which I don't mind at the moment because it's winter here in New Zealand. And so it's always for me for travelling because you can imagine I'm in airports, on planes, you don't have a great choice, the food's not that great, you're bored, all of those things. So yeah, it really, really helps in that. So
yeah,
I love it. Of course I love it. Of course I love it, but it has been, and you just wouldn't believe the feedback. I just loved bumping into Phil last night, and he's like, yeah, I've lost 11. He's a big man. He's 6'5", and 11 kilograms, and he goes, oh wow, so that is for me, just pure pleasure, and the feedback we get from so many people. But I do say, that protocol coming off, absolutely, it's a must if you want to maintain that weight loss. And the second thing is read the instructions. like with a GLP-1, you bring up your dose. We bring it up, but we do it over a week, not a month. Because what you've got to do is let your body get used to that super production of GLP-1. So we say take 1 a day for 2 days, take 2 a day for 2 days, and then get up to your dose of 2 an hour. They're little wee tiny capsules, 2 an hour before lunch and an hour before dinner. Do it on an empty stomach or an empty-ish stomach with a glass of water. The reason being is you want the capsules to go through to the upper duodenum or the upper intestinal tract. They bypass the stomach and go there. That's where you want them to go. And, and just follow the instructions. And 5% of people only need 1 capsule. So if you're feeling the effects with 1 capsule, don't go up to 2. You may, 90% of people are 2, that lucky 5 to 7%, just take 1.
Awesome. So will you feel the nausea if you go up too quickly, if let's say you don't follow the instructions? Or
Very unlikely to feel nausea.
Okay.
More like you're going to get a laxative effect.
Okay.
Very much you'll get a laxative. 2 things are, it's a one-off. It will happen like an hour after hour to an hour and a half after you've taken the capsule. It's very normal and it's a one-off, and it will go in 2 to 3 days just as your body gets used to it. That's why we say build up over a week.
Okay, that's good advice.
The only time people will feel nausea if they take it on a full stomach. Because, it gets caught in the stomach, and it's not a bad, it's just, but take it on an empty stomach with a glass of water. Let it, or even an hour and a half before, let it go through to that upper duodenum.
Okay, awesome. So normally
And it's
I
a
ask,
subtle effect. It's just like you'll be eating and suddenly you'll go, I'm full.
I don't need to eat anymore.
Yeah, well, anyone that's been on GLP-1 injectables knows the feeling. And just remember, on a GLP-1 injectable, you have high GLP-1 or synthetic GLP-1 24 hours a day for 7 days a week. You do not need high GLP-1 when you're asleep. You really only want high GLP-1 before you eat. So, this is the difference. And also kickstart that gut-brain axis.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so interesting. I mean, that's a good point that I hadn't considered, is that it does have the GLP-1 high all the time, you know, and you're absolutely right. And so it could be affecting even other hormones because, they kind of work in collaboration.
Well, it's going to affect GLP-2, which is the same hormone that's released from the L cells, and that actually protects the gut lining. So it's doing a whole lot of things in there.
Right, definitely. Normally I ask my guests at the end of the episode what they see as the future of GLP-1, but I want to ask you, what do you see the future of CalloCurb in this bitter hops?
Well, for us, we've never just done it about weight. It's what we say is to modernize human consumption. So the thing is, what most people don't realize is we are surrounded by calories. Well, everyone does realize. But when you drop your calories by 25% per day, you go, you know what? I'm going to lose some weight. I'm going to drop my calories. Your hunger doubles over 4 months. So the reason for that being is that it's an evolutionary. It made us get out of our caves because, otherwise we'd be lying in our caves going, hey, you know what? It's raining. I'm not going outside. And it forced us to go outside and hunt. So the whole thing is we are still this evolutionary beast. So, evolutionary consumer. It was an asset to us. It's a liability now because we're surrounded by food. You know what it's like? You walk past that morning tea table and there's a muffin there. There's something there, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to have something to eat. So we say it actually modernizes human consumption. So you can take it all the time. It's completely natural. It stimulates, it helps. So I would like to see it not just for weight management, that people take it daily like I do, as literally as a multivitamin. It is just something to help you in everyday life. And think of it like that. It's less than $1 a day. This is so just help you eat healthily. Just help you walk past those things, where you're like, that hunger feeling when you're just like, I've got to eat something. It helps you do that and can make a healthier choice. So that's what I'd like to see it as.
Yeah, I think we all need a little help because we are, I mean, if you've been to the United States a lot, you know how inundated we are with food
Oh
here.
my God. Oh my God. And they're yummy. The food, it smells beautiful. It looks great. It's telling you, come in and eat me. And it makes it very, very difficult to walk by. So anything that will help you like that, think of it as your multivitamin.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. This is such a fascinating conversation. I'm so grateful that you were able to come. And where can they learn more about CalloCurb and all of the protocols that you're developing and everything?
So if people go to www.calocurb, that's CalloCurb.com, so cal like cal o curb .com, and go in there. You'll have all the science in there. You'll have all the product. You'll have all the common questions, answers, and we also have someone 24/7 helping with questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for that. And I really appreciate you coming here on the podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for a podcast like that. It's so important to get, information and reliable information out.
Yes, definitely. All right. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the GLP-1 Hub podcast. I hope you found Sarah's interview as fascinating as I did, and it gave me a lot to think about in terms of the potential of getting off this medication and what the long-term effects might be. So I really look forward to continuing to follow the research that CalloCurb is doing with GLP-1 users and weight loss. So you're going to want to go over to their website at CalloCurb.com to stay involved with all the incredible things that they are doing over there so you can be informed. And I'll try to keep you up to date as well. And if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to leave a review. I love reading your reviews and thoughts. And also, if you need a little bit more support on your GLP-1 journey, you can visit the GLP-1 Hub store. That's glp-1hub.com, and you can find the store there. We have a guide called the Beyond the Shot Guide. It gives you everything you need to know, all of the basics for starting your GLP-1 journey, and also meal plans, recipe collections, anything that you might need. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode.